Perfect. Happy Friday, everybody. Okay, we have a busy screen ahead of us. Just a reminder, we will not meet December 24th and 23rd, 21st, 31st. That's how you can tell it's a Friday.
You're struggling as bad as me today.
That's funny. 21st. That's a thing. Okay. So Alex or Amy, if you could grab these links and throw them in the chat as I talk about it. So if you have not already, we have now our own Slack channel in MSP Geek. So if you're interested in joining us there, and no surprise, since it happened this week, I think hopefully everybody found out, should we ever have an incident, we of course report that in Slack, in Facebook, on Twitter, and in an email. So there are 4 ways that you could find out. So this week, and we posted, when AWS went down, that's just one more place where a lot of folks hang out. This Thursday coming up, next week, we are going to do Build a Bridge and Get Over It. And it's Build a Bridge to your QBR. So we're really doing a 30-minute Thursday where we're giving bite-sized pieces of, for folks. We've had a lot of folks ask us, like, in the land of continuous improvement, what's the next thing we can do? So we're going to break it up into bite-sized pieces. The webinar link for that is the one that I just saw somebody cut and paste. So hopefully that is in the chat. And then lastly, the usual crew of suspects is going to do Festivus. So Ninja One and OIT and Matthew Fox from Valiant.
Some of those guys are suspect. That is true.
And then
I don't know if I like being lumped in with that.
Well, I'm going to stick you there. And so if it's a Festivus 2-hour airing of grievances and IT feats of strength. There are lots of pretty fun prizes involved. It's of course a free event. So if you're interested in that, please join us for that. And we have confirmed Wednesday, January 26th. If you are interested in our pre-day conference workshop, it is called Make and Take Workshop, where it is from 10 to 3 in Phoenix. It is the day ahead of the 7-figure event, because we hope lots of you are there for that. And it's $97 for the day. That includes all food. And if you would like to stay the rest of the week, you can join that event for free as well. So all meals are included. You would just need to provide hotel and travel. But that day, we are going to present you'll walk away with your pre-sales assessment built. You'll walk away with your QBR process and report builder built out, along with Alex is going to work with 5 of the other vendors that will be there to really talk about how to deliver your pre-sales assessment, how to ask the questions and have the conversations. And then we'll wrap up with some customer success. So I'll be sending out emails for that. If you're interested, please let us know. And we'd love to see you there. We think that's a really reasonable price for the value that folks will walk away with. And then lastly, a couple of pieces to show you in the platform. So let me throw chat over here so I can see if they come up, because I feel like Kirk might have a comment or two. In recommendations, we are adding the ability for you to revise the names of the status. So I'm going to go into the Azure migration recommendation and show you what I'm talking about. So right now, at the status is typically proposed, in progress, etc. But now you can see that we've got declined, proposed, planned, in progress, on hold, complete. So we have added a declined piece, but there's more. I'm going to come down on the left-hand side.
There's more.
No, wait, there's more. Account settings, left-hand side, recommendation settings. So this is a whole new admin page where you can now define your own statuses, statusi, however the Latin runs on that.
You're the mathematician. Shouldn't you know the statistician language?
I'm going to call it statuses. So if you wanted declined to say declining or hated it, you could do that. You can choose if it's active or not. You can decide which one is the default. So by default, when you start a new recommendation, do you want it to be planned or proposed? So you can select the one by default. These are the default ones, but you could now change these words. So if instead of in progress, you wanted it to say working on it, it could say that on the screen, but you will have to choose a state that is either declined, completed, started, or not started. Why is that? It's for reporting purposes. For example, on the budget forecast, we assume you don't want to include anything that's been declined. We assume you don't want to include anything that's completed. You can add them, but we're not going to make the assumption that you want to include them. So this lets us lump all of those into quick categories, because you could have 9 different declines. You could have hated it, won't ever happen, maybe in the future, and they could all be declined that you might want to differentiate later. So you can select those pieces here. This status color will be useful when we get to the customer success module. So that's just looking toward that. The other pieces that you can set a default probability %. So those of you that have seen our stack alignment piece and opportunity, we're going to let you get insights into the probability that you may close some of those pieces. Any questions on that before I show you the one other piece? Okay. Then the last piece will be if I go into update your firewalls, for example, and I create, I use this recommendation and then decide that I want to make this a template. Kirk, are you listening? I just said recommendation template. You don't even have to unmute. I see that smile. Okay, he was waiting for the magic word. Is she going to say recommendation template? When you go to save as a template, this will create a template based on this recommendation, and it will store the following. So let's think through this. The name, the description, the priority, the labor costs, material costs, recurring costs. It will not save as the linked assets or the linked assessments, because you can use this across clients. So that makes total sense that we wouldn't save that. But if you weren't thinking of it right away, that is why. And you can change the name. So this is now firewalls template or template. And when you create that template, it's successfully been saved. So now let me go back to my recommendations list. This is how you will see that. You will only see it if you add new. So when I go to add new, you will now see from the left-hand side, fill from a predefined template. Yep, I'm going to grab the security upgrades template. And you can see that it added the name, the status, the description, the cost, the recurring cost that you can now edit at will. But that's a starter place for you to work from. So hip, hip, hooray. Alex and I found out about this at 2:36 today, and here we are presenting it 30 minutes later. So hope everybody's pleased with that. We thought that was pretty amazing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can introduce our esteemed guest and colleague here today. So Kevin, thanks for listening through that. I said it's 5 minutes, but we had a 7-minute interruption because our developers do this to us.
That's right.
So
we didn't know this was coming an hour ago. I just want to say.
No, yeah, not only did we just see it at
it was a Christmas miracle for us too.
So we have the author of the MSP Growth Funnel, Kevin Clune, here with us. Clune here, not here to talk about that book, although we certainly can. Kevin and I had a chat earlier last week about MSP Spark and a very cool brainstorming activity that, oddly enough, you did with one of our joint partners. And so we brought him today to talk through a customer success brainstorming so we could chat customer success, but also really show the whole thinking behind it, because this is I'd love to hear a bit about MSP Spark and how you're using the tool, because I thought it was pretty fun. And then when I showed Alex the tool, he's like, ooh, like bells, whistles, things, buttons. I liked it.
Yeah.
So how's that for a non-intro intro?
I like shiny things.
It's great. Yeah, so what we're going to show here is really like more of just an exercise. So this is something we do inside MSP Spark. That's a platform. It's kind of like part community, part peer group alternative, part just like giant bank of marketing ideas. But what here really what I wanted to show was the process, and the process is actually idea prioritization. This happens within teams, it happens within communities and forums where you get a bunch of ideas together. Maybe you submit something on, like, let's say Reddit, right? So our MSP, you get a lot of people's opinions, a lot of them conflict each other. And then like, you're not really left with like an outcome, it's up to, and the other thing is like, you have moderators, you have different levels of feedback where some people's ideas are like more heavily weighted. And so that was kind of like one of the things that one of the problems we were trying to solve is, let's form a process where we can take a lot of feedback and ideas and then weight everything equally and then kind of turn it into an actual outcome. Like how do we actually make this something that I can go do, put it on like a roadmap or like set milestones and goals. And so I'll actually share my screen.
You should have the ability to do that.
Yes.
And while you're doing that, say that release that I just mentioned will come out this weekend for folks that are poking in the platform now and don't see it. I should have mentioned.
I'm also going to drop a link in the chat. So everyone can you see the board right now on the screen share? Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to drag it over here so that I can see the camera. And so everyone, if you look at the link in the chat, you're actually welcome to come into the board and poke around, because this is actually a hands-on activity. And so once I start seeing people pop in, I'll sort of walk you through the process. And so for this example, we kind of took what was a generic problem statement. So you can be pretty specific with your problem statements, or you can be somewhat kind of open-ended. And so this is a pretty open-ended one. And it's basically just like, how could we improve our customer success? Now, you could also make it more specific and say, like, how do we make QBRs more engaging, right? Or like, how do we make them more fun or something like that? But so for the sake of, I think, this kind of workshop, we kind of went wide. And so what we did is earlier this week, we opened this up to our community to add ideas to. And so this is part of what we do inside there is like, we just open, a problem will come up within the social feed. We'll start a brainstorm and then everyone will jump in and add their ideas. And then we put them through this process. And so what I'm actually going to do now that I see some people are in there, I'm actually going to start a 1-minute timer, and everybody in here is actually welcome to click on 1 minute. Go ahead and jump in and add some ideas if you want. All you have to do is click into a blank sticky note, and that would be on step number 2 here, and then just type away. And so once the timer's up, we'll actually start the process of now grouping these together and merging them into new ideas. And if anybody has questions, feel free to speak up as the timer's going.
All right, so we're writing ideas for how might we improve our customer success. I see.
I was going to say, I love watching all the little cursors.
It's so fun. Yeah. And I'm actually going to add a minute to the timer just to give us a little more, see some more activity going.
I'm going to switch monitors so I can make that giant.
And so I'm kind of just watching the popcorn pop right now. As it stops popping, we'll kind of like move on. So I'm actually going to add 1 more minute.
I like watching like visiting goat is scrolling around.
It's like being at the zoo.
Visiting hippopotamus has things to say. I like the tip, learn to zoom and move around. Oh, my lands, that's so much better. I just made it huge for myself.
Somebody figure out how to change colors. That's just cheating. It's all about
That's
me.
all right.
That's right.
We have an equalizer for that. All right. Timer's up.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm going to move this back here. I'm going to clean up for a minute. So now what we're going to do, we have a lot of feedback here, right? There's probably around, if I had to guess, like 35 to 40 ideas. And kind of like I said, you know, when we're at this point, you know, when we open this to our community, you know, some of these people are experts. Some of them are just, you know, MSP owners. But when you look at them in this way, everything is sort of just equal. You're taking everything at face value, which is important. And so what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to start a voting session. And I'm going to give everybody 10 votes. And so everyone vote on the ideas that you sort of like are gravitating towards. And so this might take about 5 minutes. So go through, I'm going to launch it in a minute. And I'm actually you will be allowed to vote on an idea multiple times. So if there's like something that you feel particularly strong about, feel free to vote up to 2 times. And I'm going to launch that right now.
Kevin, can you put the link back in the chat? I can't. Oh, there we go. I got it. Sorry. Tim went out and came back in. Lost the link. Okay.
All right.
Begin.
So everyone should have
Yep.
10 votes. To vote, basically just click on a sticky. And then I'm actually going to start another timer. I'm going to make it for 3 minutes.
Hmm. How are we getting party hats and things?
Thank you. That's where I was like, wait, I want to play with that too. Where is that? Oh, probably the emoji face down there by the,
Yeah.
got it.
Give an MSP a shiny button. They're going to click it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their hacker's dream.
I got to break it somehow.
Kevin could have put all the malware behind the little party hat button. And
All right. So I'm going to cut this short. We're going to end the vote. Let me see. It looks like there's
10 people are
10
voting.
people still voting. So I'll give it a little more time. There might be some people that aren't using their votes though.
So as a teacher, I would have loved this tool because so many times you get students that are hesitant to talk out loud, right? But to be able to vote and everybody gets, ideas on the board. I think that a real, and the anonymity of who added the piece to the board. Sometimes people are surprised who has that idea. So that's just an educator perspective on it. But the tool is very, I like it.
And you'll see, part of the thing that's great is that, and when you think about internal teams and morale, it's like, it's hard to really see your ideas make it all the way through to something that the company's actually going to commit to. But you'll actually see that in this process because we're going to form these groups and then the groups will carry all the way through to essentially the goals, right? And the roadmap. And so if I'm, just maybe a employee at the company and I see that make its way through and I see my idea now being kind of like acted on, that's a feel good thing,
So,
all right, so I'm going to end the voting session and we'll actually be able to see the results. Wow, okay.
oh, nice, Jeff.
So we have some obvious things here. So better onboarding, right? Use the force. It's great. I thought pizza parties would be on here for sure, but and so everyone can sort of just skim through this for a minute. But ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to take these ideas that were heavily voted and we're going to start putting them into groups and forming like more actual concepts here and themes. And so I'll actually start with our better onboarding. I'm going to drag it over here. And I'm going to call this onboarding program. And so now anyone feel free to grab a sticky that maybe fits that theme and add it to the onboarding program. And I'm actually going to form a couple other groups now based on some of the themes here. So just unlock these. And we might have to move some, I would try to maybe stop at like 5. So I'm going to say, how about like customer success reporting? I saw some that I think would maybe follow that. I'm going to say, like defining success. What is success internally? And if anybody wants to form their own group, feel free.
Oh, here, I'll do this. It's like we're flying everywhere.
Oops.
These.
Yeah, another nice thing about this, random aside, adult learners require a different visual something every 8 seconds or they will they'll stop paying attention, which is why you should always have your camera on in Zoom if you're having a meeting, because if you've got nothing but a static slide, adult learners will jump, but the constant movement and things changing allows you to have this sort of thinking space and silence on Zoom that you don't always get.
Yeah, I find even like as a facilitator, I get sucked into the activity. You know what I mean? But like, that's kind of why we were drawn to developing this process. Is my partner and I, like, we're idea people. Like we've always had way more ideas than we've had time to execute. And so we have to go through this. And we really started using this on our own, and just trying to figure out, like, and we know not all of our ideas are good. Some are just the ideas of the moment. And so we needed a way for us to really like manage that. Does anybody have a suggestion for a group for fire them if they suck and it's all about me? I'd love to hear from anybody.
Attention to detail.
Ego.
There you go.
Nice.
All right. So, got a lost sticky. Let me bring this back up here. Let me see where this might fit in, and then we'll move on to the next step. Just put that here. Okay. And so now we have some pretty concrete concepts here. And so the next step is to chart these based on two things: importance and feasibility. This is like another equalizer, because you can take the same ideas and you could give them to two totally different businesses, two different MSPs, and their chart here would be totally different.
Oh yeah.
Some people have more time, some people have less time, some people have more profitability, less profitability. Their internal skills are different, right? And so that makes things more or less feasible. And so I think maybe, Alex, why don't we actually use you as an example here? And like, let's zoom back to like where you left off as an MSP, because we have to kind of like, set this up. Okay. And so maybe if we could use kind of your position at your MSP and where you were at before, I guess, your exit and then your next
a distracted
venture.
owner who's playing with too many toys and building lifecycle insights on the side. I'm there.
And so let's kind of take that position and let's chart these now based on where you were at that time and what would be feasible and important and what wouldn't be. And because that, I think, because obviously this was a big problem for you enough to where you developed a product. And so I think that's a perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
So if you want to start with group, how about number one here, the onboarding program. And so where would you put that on this chart? And by the way, feel free to just drag it down.
Yeah, we had a pretty nailed down onboarding for a long time. It was pretty well documented, a pretty solid process. I didn't feel like it was a pain point. So,
okay. So pretty feasible and obviously important.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely feasible, definitely important. Okay. Largely a function of IT glue, and life wasn't too terrible. Stuff disappearing.
Yeah, we had a rearrange issue. Here we go. Okay. So bring this down, put it somewhere about there. Okay. And so how about the reporting aspect, reporting on customer success?
At that point, it was totally impossible.
Yeah.
And it was 100% gut feel, and we weren't good at it. So it was important.
And so impossible. It's very important, but like not feasible, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so how would you agree with this placement here?
It's probably fair.
Okay.
Give or take.
And now, like, did you ever feel like you had a definition of success?
Yeah, we did. And that was actually, one of the things that I put in there was, how do we know we're winning? Because that was actually a quote that we had on the wall in my office, because we talked about it a lot. So success was defined. We knew what it was, what it meant to us and to our customers. And I think that was part of the reason that we knew we were failing them with a crappy QBR process.
Yeah. And so that is obviously incredibly important, but also like you could have a definition of success today if you needed one, or, you know, by the end of the week or whatever. So that's very feasible.
Yep.
And so goals, you know, how about like setting goals? You know, as a company, did you have goals for your clients, for, you know,
More so internally than for our clients.
Okay.
I mean, we had our goals for our clients, but I don't know that they were as well communicated as they should have been. You know, I knew which clients I wanted to upgrade to what, to buy what, to add products and services, but I don't know that it was clearly enough communicated.
All right. So would you agree somewhere around here?
Sure.
And so let's look at these 4 right now. And I want to make sure we're tracking for importance in the right way. Oh, somebody.
That one was me. I broke the whole thing.
That's all right. And so would you say that as far as importance is concerned, are these ranked correctly?
Yeah, I guess. Although, I don't know, I struggle with reporting being ranked lower in importance than some of the rest of this because,
yeah, I would agree with that.
You know, you don't know a customer's upset till you lose them if you don't have the reporting. And that was always that thing that gave me a pit in my gut, right?
And you always need it when it's too late, right?
Yeah, when
like,
you need it after they've already called you and said, my nephew says we should have all the passwords to our network. Okay. Right. And by that time, somebody else is already running a rapid fire tool scan and your
yeah,
customer's on their way out the door, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to bump that up and I'm going to say, you know, we can be maybe successful without a clear goal.
Yeah.
Maybe. Right?
We were successful for a long time without a clear onboarding program.
Right. True. Would you put goals ahead of onboarding program as far as importance?
I think so. I have the whole life of the client to overcome the onboarding program.
Okay.
You miss 100% of the targets you don't aim for. So.
Right.
Right.
And so this is what's interesting. Watch what's happening, right? Because we had this idea now with better onboarding that got the most votes. And now as we're charting it, we're seeing it slip, right? And it slips down. And so it kind of proves that like our gut instincts aren't always right when it comes to this. And so we really have to vet ourselves and our ideas and what we're putting together here and try to figure out like what is the best outcome here and what do we attack first. And so, all right, let's start focusing on some other groups here. So relationship building. Obviously, there's a lot you can do in a short time period with relationship building, but there's also, I think, it's a very long process, right? So like you can make a good first impression, but like to really have a good relationship, it takes a long time.
And it takes a lot of work, right? Yeah. You know, it's especially without the right tools, relationship building was a monumental task. So yeah, I think it is very high in importance and yet rather difficult and unfeasible. So
would you put it maybe here?
No, I would put it above CS reporting and all of that stuff. At least at my MSP, it was as close to number 1 as you could get because everybody bought from us on relationship and everyone stayed with us for relationship. They didn't stay with us because we had amazing customer success tools.
Right.
You know, the relationship was the thing that saved us when everything else was insufficient, right? If we didn't have the other pieces. I think relationship to me was maybe one of the most important things.
My last company, people would say they are staying with us because of the people in spite of the product sometimes. Yeah. Right. So yeah,
and that's a real thing. I remember a customer telling me that they didn't want to fire their IT guy who obviously, I mean, their network was on fire and they didn't want to fire their IT guy because he was a good dude.
Right.
Right. And I'm thinking, you know, you can't work. He took a PC 4 weeks ago, left your office with it and hasn't been back. You have a user with a desk that has a monitor and a keyboard and no computer to plug into it for 4 weeks. How can you not fire this guy? Like, he's a good dude. He's got family. And so he obviously had a relationship with him.
Yeah. And that relationship was obviously stronger than the transaction, right? Which I think if you can overcome that,
Right. And somebody
right?
tell Kirk I want my computer back.
Yeah. All right, so
Um,
let's look at end user training.
I think
Very
it's
difficult.
I think it's getting easier. The tools are getting better, right?
That is true, but I
Um,
think engagement is difficult.
yeah.
So
I
like,
agree. I agree.
if you know, and I actually think that this is great that somebody put the create a reward program for behavior you want. So like almost gamifying it, right?
Yeah.
You can even put pizza parties in there, right? So if everybody, if we get all of our end users in there, we get them, you know, training, and everybody gets above a certain score, maybe the IT provider, you know, buys the company pizza or something like that. So
Yeah.
now you have like an idea, a way that, you know, something that you can put together, a program to actually get them to educate themselves and reward them for it. And
Yeah.
so obviously this is incredibly important in the cybersecurity environment, but it's difficult. And so you really need a plan of attack, and you need a way to engage. So I'm actually going to put that here. And Alex, would you agree or disagree?
I can live with that.
Okay. And so last ditch efforts, obviously very feasible, but not very important. Like,
Yeah. I'm not a fire the client guy, so that's always last on my list.
yeah. So very feasible. Not important. Oh, who was that? Sorry, I thought I locked that. And then the last one is attention to detail. Honestly, this is you could go either way with this because it's behavior based, and so therefore, you know, sometimes we just have bad habits, and bad habits are hard to break. And so some people put attention to detail. It's actually easy to do, right? Like there's, it's easy to be nice and be cordial, and like there's not a cost to that. Like, but it's behavior, it's training, it's culture, it's all of that. And so where would you put that, Alex?
I mean, at our MSP, we were pretty good at it. You know, engagement was a strength. You know, spontaneous outreach was something that we were good at. I would say very feasible, mid-level importance. Because if you're doing all the other things right, so I'd probably put it all the way right somewhere in the area. Because if you're doing all the other things right, you know, what I don't see in attention to detail that would make me move it further up is, you know, better documentation and those kind of things. Like if it was about if we were talking attention to technology detail, then I would say top right corner, right? It's got to happen. It's doable. IT glue is a thing. The world should live in IT glue. You know, and I would be ready to beat people if that one wasn't top right and done. But being what we put in it, I think that's the right spot for it.
Okay. And so now we're actually going to move on to the next step. And what we're going to do is we're going to chart these, and we're going to say, these are now going to be goals, things that we are set to accomplish. And so I'm actually going to do, because of the feasibility of some of these, I'm going to say the first one's going to be 1 week, right? The next one's going to be 1 month. We're going to do let's do 3 months. And then for some of the more difficult ones, let's do 1 year. And so not everything is going to come all the way through. So what we've done is we've sort of weeded out 3, right? These 3, let's pull them off, and let's just focus on these up here. And let's say within 1 week, we should have an internal definition for success. Sorry, the layering gets a little crazy when there's a lot of people in here. We'll put that there. And we'll just.
It's funny. I see the votes, but not the box.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
All right, and so onboarding program. So I'm in preparation of that. I'm going to bring it to the front, and I'm going to say, within 1 month, we should maybe have some sort of documented onboarding program. We don't necessarily have to have onboarded our first client, but we should be ready to and prepared to just know what that should look like. We should have some things documented. We should have the tools in place. And so attention to detail up here, I would actually, this seems to work if I bring to front. I'm actually going to put this also in 1 month. And I'm going to say, within 1 month, we should also just maybe document as a company, like, what are some of these nuances that are important for us from a culture perspective? How, what's the tone that we're going to take with clients?
Yeah.
What is, how often are we going to engage, even when we don't have to, even when they're not submitting tickets? What's that cadence look like?
Yeah,
What
we
are we
did a
gonna
stupid
say?
little exercise with our customers, and we put a pin on the board with all of their locations. We printed a big map of our area and said, put a pin up for every single person and identify, if you go visit one customer who are 3 other customers, you can just pop in and visit while you're in the neighborhood.
That's
right?
awesome.
And,
Yeah.
it helped with those touch point cadences and was part of the reason we had relationships.
And so building that sort of like radius exercise, like that's a
Radius,
purpose thing.
cadences, how often should you touch a customer,
Mhm.
those kind of things. And they're
And
easy
so-
exercises.
Let's look at relationship building, because again, pretty difficult. And so I'm going to put that in the 3-month window.
I will say relationship building is not hard if you like people and actually care about their
Right.
businesses, but it takes a long time to build the trust. Right.
Well, and if you've broken it, it's harder to fix.
Oh,
Yeah.
If,
absolutely.
if you're starting with a deficit, it's a challenge.
So would you put that further out, maybe a 6-month window, or?
I think
You know,
it's.
do
I
you-
think that's going to depend for every MSP.
Okay.
If it's a big lift, if you feel like you're fighting a mistake or some challenges, then maybe.
Yeah.
I don't feel like for us it was. My
All right.
my problems at my MSP were all hiring the right director of operations. I only spent 15 years trying to figure that out.
All right, let's stretch that out. And then let's say, I think goals is a good 3-monther. Cool. And so within 3 months, maybe we should have some, again, internally defined goals. Each customer should have a goal, right? And so if, let's say you have different verticals, you have, and this is one of the things that like we try to address inside MSP Spark. We did it with this Think Like an SMB guide that we just put out. And an exercise that we did over like a 1-month period is sometimes you have to address your clients differently. Their solution stacks are different. Like everything, if you're really doing it right, your service stack from vertical to vertical should almost look totally different. It's not great for operations. It's very less feasible, right? But like if we're talking customer success and outcomes that they want, sometimes, for example, and one of the things that one of the personas that we built in that exercise was a nonprofit, right? An executive director. They're all about fundraising. Their business revolves around Blackbaud or their fundraising software. Like everything that they do, obviously they have a very unique decision-making process. And so you have to know that in and out in order to you can't have the same kind of relationship with them that you do maybe a small law firm that is, one guy that makes all the decisions and it's like very
and bills by
easy.
the hour and has definable revenue and
Right.
isn't begging grant writers, right? I mean, those
Exactly.
are 2 very different scenarios.
And so you really, when you talk about setting a goal, like you need a framework for your goals, but you also need to have some kind of way to set a unique goal on a customer by customer.
Well, and the other thing I'd point out about goals, and this is something that I think I've had beat into my head by some customers that we have today that are better at some of this than I was at my MSP, was that when you think goals, don't just think about your goals, but think about your customers' goals, right? Where are they going? What are they doing? What's changing in their business? And, you know, Trisha, who's on the call today, is phenomenal at this. And we have a few MSP partners who are really excel at identifying what a customer's goal is and then figuring out how technology goals line up with that. Because it's a real win when I get something out of them cybersecurity wise that also enables their goal of opening a new office or enabling their salespeople to work from the road or do whatever. Then it's a win for them and they've met their goal, which made it easier for them to say yes to my goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, it starts with just knowing what that is, like acknowledging that, and not, that's such an easy can to kick down the street, right?
Well, and
like,
digging into your customer to figure out what those goals are. I mean, that in and of itself is a challenge.
And so if you look at where we're at now, right? So we have some milestones here. Like we have a plan of attack and we've actually used a lot of ideas. And so if, you know, in our community in MSP Spark, this obviously looks kind of chaotic. And so what we do is we turn this into a deck that we publish it. And so it becomes like a deliverable for each problem. And so I'll actually do one of those for this. We can send it out to everybody that attended. I think that would be great and like a valuable takeaway. But more so, I just wanted to show everybody the process, right? And so, because I think that's what's important here. I'll also send this template out. And so anybody can just use this template if they want it to kind of like handle things internally, collaborate, because it really is a valuable way to process either feedback or make decisions. And obviously like build culture internally when you just need to get people to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom fatigue. It's like, it's a real thing, right? And like just sitting there talking to each other, you don't really ever get somewhere. What ends up happening is like the head decision maker listens, and this is maybe how it should be, right? But at the end of the day, they listen, they get feedback. Maybe some people are afraid to speak up. And then they kind of just go off and they make the decision for everybody else. And so I prefer to take this approach where everybody's involved, everybody can add to it, and then everybody's ideas sort of carry through. And you can still, as the problem owner and as the decision maker, sort of chart this and put it on your roadmap and make your decisions. But like, it's very inclusive of everybody's participation.
Yeah, it's a very cool tool. It has me thinking it would be interesting to do this even with clients on like some of their strategic goals, right? And to be able to then align like, okay, you said you care about all of these things. And so MFA or whatever. Yeah, no, I like it.
And yeah, so Mural is just the tool that we use. Like this is a template that we developed. Obviously Mural, if that's, you know, if you're interested in the tool, that there's a ton of different templates in there, like that, you know, can just pick up and grab and do whatever you want with.
I can see so many uses for this, but this is a cool exercise.
And Jeff put in the chat, he's actually done this with the Lean Six Sigma or Sigma 6 with Post-it notes, right? Where they do the same thing. We did that once too on a big glass wall that stretched through a conference room of lots of Post-it notes. And Jeff, do you have experience around that you want to talk to, or just commenting like, yeah, you've done this?
No, it's great when you get everybody involved because then there's buy-in. It's not just the collaboration, so you get acceptance. Everybody working together, you know, you see your note going in and then it's going into the different groups. The ideas all come in, you put them in a big pile and then just start throwing them straight up on the board. When they start grouping, the acceptance factor is doubled, if not tripled, with everyone buying into the process and with people being involved in it. they feel like they've got skin in the game. So that's the whole reason. And having it, virtually like this is like, oh, great. I don't need to rent a room, get everybody there, buy 1,000 sticky notes. Yeah, like I see
Take
Kevin
pictures of
laughing.
all my sticky notes later.
I'm writing your marketing blurb right now, right, Kevin?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we actually do the brainstorming ahead of time. So like because I like to let that marinate a little bit. So we'll open up a board, we'll let people add ideas whenever they have time. And then when we do these sessions within the community, like it's 30 minutes. It's quick, so we don't really, there's not really deliberating. Like we open it up for conversation, we let it breathe a little bit, but at the same time, like we're there to make, produce outcomes, and we're there to sort of just like process these problems for people and get them through. So like if anybody has any comments or questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
And I'd like to share, as they're typing comments, maybe that our joint partner, the question they asked was, what are some strategies I can use to distribute the newsletters, right? Like he had marketing content that he wanted to, and he was just sort of stuck in like, I've got this, what's the best strategy? And you came up with those like short, quick, tactical, fast wins, and then longer term, a bigger process in place. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. And so, that's a perfect thing is like, and it's funny because he's actually a member of the Tech Tribe, awesome community, right? And so he gets this free resource as part of his membership there.
Yep.
But even talking about it within the Tech Tribe, like it's a forum based, and it's, you don't really have like that. You don't really have a bow to put on it,
well,
right? And so,
at best, a threaded conversation,
right?
But again, it's a scrolling like. Load more comment. I mean, it's not a Facebook, but it's like,
It's a slightly more educated Reddit thread, right?
Yeah.
They've
Right.
managed to keep the dumpster fire that is Reddit out of it, but the organization is similar.
Yeah, exactly.
It suffers the same challenges of any online bulletin board type forum that we've struggled with since bulletin boards.
Yeah, and so that really is why, and this was a great opportunity. We actually we're sharing the results within Tech Tribe, because like we want everybody to be able to benefit from that. But that's really what was our approach to really developing MSP Spark, was like we want it to be a peer group alternative almost, rather than just a forum or a community. Because and I actually read a book, I might have it over here, it's called Peer Innovation. It's one of the guys that started Vistage, I believe. And so his thing was like, bless you, Martin, that in order to have a peer group, you have to be processing problems. Like that is the number one component of a successful peer group, and it's why people will participate. Our challenge was we didn't want to do it in just a forum or a community, and we didn't want to do it in a conversation style, because everybody's zoomed out, right? It's just like, you don't want to just have another obligation of a Zoom call.
Hey, you're on my Zoom call, dude.
Right, yeah. And so that, I think, was the challenge, is like, how do we get this to where we are doing what we're supposed to be doing of processing problems? It doesn't cost $500 a month for a routine call. And it's just like an easy way for everybody to participate when they can, but like not obligated to. And so, yeah, we're in there, we're processing as many problems as we can. And I let them develop organically through the social feed, because that's the best way to do it. People just kind of drop in comments. They say, hey, this is a problem I have. And then we kind of like fire it up, say, all right, brainstorm everybody. And then we'll be tagging people. We've got a lot of experts in there that, Marty now, right? So it's a lot of fun. It's like, and everybody's just kind of in there to help.
That's a cool space. So I can see Tim said he signed up for the yearly plan of MSP Spark already. That's awesome. I super appreciate you first explaining to me at the beginning, inviting us to participate, and then joining us here so we could walk through it with a topic that, I mean, that was the perfect way, right? Something that we all kind of could relate to. and maybe got some ideas around in addition to the brainstorming activity. I thought that was excellent. So I have a question of like, what collateral can we share out? You had given me the Think Like an SMB
Yeah.
deck. We'd love to, so we post this and send it out to all of our partners. What can I send?
Do you want to send Ron's one to the, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that's actually this, like the Think Like an SMB, that was a buyer persona process,
Yeah.
totally different board that we did. This, we can send both and that. I
Yeah,
think
that'd be
that'll-
awesome. Yeah, that would be great. If you can just send it to me, we'll attach it to everybody for everybody. I think that'd be great. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you. We will wrap up here. I want to remind folks that, so we are going to release William, we weren't here. If you're still on, you weren't here. Is William still on? Nope, doesn't matter. Okay, I'll make sure to reach out to him. I think he's the only one that's left that had joined late. So we were going to release the recommendation templates and the status updates tomorrow. So by Monday, when you log out and log back in, that should be there. Again, this is Kevin Clune from MSP Spark, and again, the author of my Now Weekend reading. So that looks very consumable. I'm excited for that.
I gotta run. Kevin, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, all. And we'll ship out the recording and we'll chat with everybody next week. Oh, friendly reminder, we are having our on-site QBR internally. So if support's a little slow the beginning of next week, that is why. But we'll be back next week with our roadmap. So have good ones.
I
Bye, all.
Thank you.